This has to be one of the worst feelings anybody could experience when you try to get money out of your bank, but the bank account manager says, sorry, your account is frozen and your cash is stuck in their bank. Now, I have 3 different stories that people have told me over the past few weeks, and I want to share these with you. I also want to share a few different reports that we have seen over the past couple of weeks as well regarding institutions shutting down and closing people's accounts. So we're going to talk about all this in today's video. All I ask is one thing, takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. So just think about this for a second. You go into your bank and you try to access your money, and they say, sorry, your account is frozen. Well, that's exactly what we are seeing. Look at this story. It says, abrupt shutdown of financial middleman Synapse has frozen thousands of Americans' deposits. That's concerning. But look at this, okay? It says, the bank accounts of tens of thousands of U.S. businesses and consumers have been frozen in the aftermath of the abrupt shutdown and bankruptcy of financial technology company Synapse, which acts as a middleman between financial technology companies and banks. Synapse filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in April. Here's the problem. If a company shuts down and you have money in their bank, or they are the middleman between the bank and this technology, guess what? Your money is locked up. There's nothing you can do about it. We also have another report. This one from just the other day. It says Canada's 9-point halts cash payments or payouts on 3 credit funds. It says lender to mid-market firms say it needs to preserve liquidity. That's a problem, okay? That is a huge problem when they are temporarily suspending cash distributions to 3 of its private credit funds. Now, I want to read you a couple, or actually 3 different comments that I've received, or actually 2 comments and 1 email that I received over the past few weeks. One of which they just sent me yesterday morning, and their funds are being frozen. Listen to this. This person says, Snyder reports, my representative from Chase Bank called me and said I needed to deposit money into my account or risk an overdraft when my mortgage payment goes through on the 4th. Today is the 1st. I received this just yesterday. The person says, so I did. Then they froze my account to check why I deposited a cashier's check from myself into their bank. They said the freeze won't last more than 5 days. How can they do this? And will they still charge me an overdraft fee if it doesn't clear? I talked about this last week, where I said I went in, I was getting a lot of reports that people were saying that their cashier's checks were not readily available. They were not immediately available for whatever the amount is. In my opinion, I thought a cashier's check was as good as cash, right? It's called a cashier's check. Well, here's what happened. I went into the bank, I deposited a check of, I believe, $30,000, $40,000, something like that, and they only gave me a small fraction of that. A small fraction. All the rest, it was going to take a handful of days. I think 42 hours or 72 hours. Well, this person asks, how can they do this? Well, when you deposit money in a bank, it's up to the bank if they even have the money on hand. If they have it where you can actually utilize it, or you can take it there. Well, then they ask, will they still charge me an overdraft fee if it doesn't clear? Well, that's up to the bank. Honestly, I don't know. I'd assume they wouldn't charge you if the money's sitting there and it's unavailable, okay? Because you have an available balance and an unavailable balance, or you should. So that you'll have to see. But I thought this was interesting that they froze their account because they're looking into the cashier's check that is from that person to their own account, just from a different financial institution. I do the same thing, and it wasn't until just recently that they actually put a hold on it. Listen to this one as well. It is not just the banks that are closing accounts. I've had 2 of my accounts frozen for 7 days as they look into a suspicious charge. I didn't even report this as a suspicious charge myself, as they were both payments that I made into Coinbase, a crypto exchange. But either way, I had my 2 bank accounts frozen because of it, and the results were that my mortgage was late, my car payment was late, I got a $50 late fee on my utilities, and I couldn't even take my kids to daycare because I couldn't access my money and pay their fee. Think about that. That is interesting. That they had 2 of their accounts frozen for 7 days total. My guess is they made a payment from one account and the other to try and to get money into Coinbase. But again, the account was frozen, which means you cannot access the money. You can't take money out. You cannot go and spend money because, again, that account is frozen. It says their mortgage was late, their car payment was late, a $50 late fee on utilities. They couldn't even get their money out to pay their daycare provider. So their kids couldn't go to daycare. Interesting. But this is the problem. Banks have so much power over what's technically your money. The reason why I say it's your money is because the bank is technically giving you an IOU. You take your money to them, you give it to them, they give you an IOU. But it does not mean that as soon as you come into the bank and you ask this, hey, I just deposited $100,000, can I have $100,000 back? They might tell you no. Sorry, we don't have that money, because as soon as they get it, they're trying to lend it out to other people. They're trying to make interest on it because that's how the bank stays afloat. That and some fees. Now, I want to read you this one because this is one that is very close to me because this person actually lives in Washington State. This person says, you want to know why I don't like banks and never have? My credit union, which I have been with for more than 15 years, decided they will close my account because of out-of-country transactions. This person says, I live in Bellingham and work in Vancouver. If you don't know Bellingham, Washington, Bellingham is to the northern part of Washington. It's right on the border, right on the Canadian border. It's very close. And Vancouver is obviously a little bit north of the border. So they're very close. But Bellingham, I have a lot of friends that do this. They live in Bellingham or very close to that area, Mount Vernon, places like that. And they work in Canada, in Vancouver. Now, this person says, but it is their policy to provide a 30-day notice if they decide to close an account. But instead of letting me wait for 30 days, they froze my funds for 30 days until they can close my account for good. So this person, they get the notice that their account is being closed because of out-of-country transactions. Too many. Obviously, they live in Bellingham, in Washington State, which is in the United States, and they work in Vancouver, which is in British Columbia, okay, in Canada. Well, if this person's account is, if that's what they're saying, I just take my money and I move it to a Canadian account, right? Simple. I just take some of it and move it over there. Leave some of my money here in the U.S. as well. That's what I do. But again, it's troubling that we got to go through all these different hoops and jump over all these hurdles because banks are now trying to minimize their risk. And the way that they're minimizing their risk is telling us, well, we're closing your account because of suspicious activity. We're closing your account because of out-of-country transactions. We're closing your account because, well, we just don't like where you are purchasing things from, right? This is the problem. The money that we give banks is technically an IOU. It's not necessarily our money, and now banks are treating us as such. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 6 to 12 months. All I can tell you is do the best that you can to diversify. If you have, let's say, $50,000, or we'll just go with what the average American has, about $4,000. Take $3,000, put it in one account. Take the other $1,000 and put it in another account. Make sure that one's, let's say, in a bigger bank, the other one's in like a regional or a credit union. Okay, diversify the money in case one of the accounts decides to freeze for whatever reason, or they simply close that account. Okay, make sure you are protected. But if you have any other stories like this where a bank has frozen your funds, or they have closed your account, or they have actually lowered your credit line, let me know down in the comment section below. Because for one, I absolutely love reading these because it gives me more of a perspective on what banks are actually doing today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.